Hey, this is Stephen Young again, and I am your host for the upcoming webinar, How I Turned a $500 Loan into $1 Million of Net Worth in Less Than 3 Years, that you've just registered for. This is the second prerequisite video that I promised you when you registered for this training, and I'm glad you're here and watching me because it means that you'll be ready when the official training session kicks off. So this is your first reminder. You should probably pause this video if you haven't watched the first video that we sent you yesterday. There should be an email from me in your inbox that links to it. Just do a search for an email from me with the subject line, How I Turned a $500 Loan into $1 Million of Net Worth in Less Than 3 Years. So if you watch the first video, you learn the 3 keys to real estate wealth, and you learn the 2 most asked questions that we get every single day. Number 1, how do I find capital for real estate investing? And number 2, how do I find the opportunities? In video number 1, we answered the second question briefly with tax sales. This is literally one of 30 strategies that we'll be covering in our upcoming webinar. So we wanted to give you that as a sort of a little piece and a tool that you can use over the next few days to research and understand how we find properties that are literally pennies on the dollar. The feedback we've been getting so far is absolutely amazing. People love the strategy of tax sales. They just don't quite know how to put it into play. But there have also been a handful of questions that have come in. So I want to address those now and address the elephant in the room before we hop on the official training. The first big question are, what are the risks involved in real estate investing? With every type of investment, there are risks. There is no question about that. Our philosophy and our teachings help to reduce the risk to the absolute minimum to help protect your nest egg. The second big question, do I need money to invest? Without a shadow of doubt, the question is yes. There is no piece of real estate on the planet that does not require capital to purchase, lease, or sell, but that does not mean the money has to be yours. We will show you techniques and strategies that require none of your own money. The third big question, how did you turn $500 into $1 million in 3 years, and can I do that? Technically, it was more than $1 million that I created, but the $1 million was my net profit after 3 years. It was what I had in the bank. And I absolutely love this question. And of course, the answer is yes. Anyone can do this, and we'll be covering every tactical and strategic move that I personally made on our free upcoming webinar. Please tune in, as this will not be recorded. So we go back to the number 1 question that everyone asks all the time, raising capital, your biggest hurdle when it comes to real estate investing. Real estate is very capital intensive. There's no question about it. It's the number 1 problem facing every real estate investor, not just beginners. If you think it's difficult trying to get a down payment together for 1 rental property, try doing a syndication with 3 institutional investors using bridge and blanket financing. It never gets easy, but we are here to show you a path on how to get you started. So to answer your question, here are some few examples. There are 7 examples that we use day to day when we come to real estate investing, raising capital. Some of these are no money down strategies whereby it's not our own money, but it's an investor's money or a partner's money. So the number 1 thing is private lenders. Private lenders have to become your friends. If you don't know what they are, it's quite easy. Just do a Google search for private lenders, hard money lenders. You could do second-tier lenders, you could do all those searches, and you will find literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people in your local community who do private lending. Yes, you're going to spend a little bit more money in terms of the interest rate, but it's usually short-term money that you get. Institutional lenders, this is your typical bank, whether you're in the US or Canada. The challenge with institutional lenders, they're very strict on who they lend to. So if you don't fall sort of within their categories, the likelihood of you getting institutional lending probably won't be great as your portfolio grows and grows over time. We're actually going to be covering this in depth as to what institutional lenders are looking for in terms of lending you money. And the biggest surprise most people find, your net worth means absolutely nothing to the bank. But we will show you and reveal to you what the number 1 thing they look for day in and day out when they're lending money. When it gets into the third one here, RSPs, TFSAs, 401ks, and second mortgages, these are incredible strategies that we use, that we tap into investors' money who have money in their savings accounts that they don't know what to do with it. We show them how to get a higher rate of return. In turn, we have joint venture partnerships with them. Vendor take-back mortgages. This is where you get a mortgage from the seller or the person who owns the home that you're buying. Essentially, you're buying the house with 100% financing, 80% from the bank, 20% from the original seller. All you have to do there is you do a clawback mortgage, and we'll tell you and reveal to you what that is in the live training. Syndicated mortgages, this is where you pool multiple sources of money from people to generally buy larger pieces of property. So this is if you want to buy, let's say, an apartment complex and you have 100 different investors, you would syndicate the mortgage whereby everybody would have an equal share in terms of the liability of the property. Promissory notes and GICs are probably #1 thing that we use every single day. Promissory notes and GICs, which is a guaranteed investment certificate, is guaranteed money for our lenders. So when we go to private lenders who want a higher rate of return, we generally negotiate down a lower rate, but we guarantee the rate, plus a bonus at the end of it if we're doing a fix and flip project especially. For long-term cash flow plays, we generally tend to go to institutional lenders because we can get a really great preferred rate. But it just depends on which strategy you're using. We're going to cover all of this in depth at our live training session. And of course, the pinnacle of a short list of strategies for no money down is joint ventures. This is where you have an equal partnership or 60-40 partnership with somebody who essentially gives you the money to invest in the property, and then you do all the legwork when it comes to that, and you share the profits either 50-50 or 60-40. So again, we'll go into this in depth when it comes to the live training. So when it comes to raising capital, before we get into live training, I want to show you how you can tap into $6 million of your network without even doing anything. So Facebook did a study a few years ago, and the average person has 100 people in their inner circle, or what we call the sphere of influence, the people who surround you every single day. These are colleagues, these are friends, these is family, these are employers, employees. And Stats Canada says the average Canadian has access to $60,000. Now, that's not just cash in the bank, but it's potentially how you can tap into equity in your home, into your savings, into your RSPs, into your TFSAs, 401ks for our people down in the States. So if you do the math, you have 100 people you can access. They on average have access to $60,000, which is the equivalent of $6 million just from your sphere of influence without doing any training from us. That is what you can tap into over the next couple of days for real estate investing if you know how to do it. But again, we're going to train you on how to do all this at the live session. When it comes to asking for money, bad presentations lead to no money, guaranteed. I learned this the hard way. We'll be teaching you what not to say to people and how to say the right things so that you can actually get more money that you can actually spend in terms of real estate investing. But when it comes to your presentation, you have to know your market. You have to know your product, you have to have a game plan, and you don't want to experiment with other people's money. It's the #1 rule when you're using other people's money. You never, ever, ever lose their money, period. It's okay if you don't make a profit, but if you're taking money from somebody else, you would never lose their money. It's the #1 rule. When it comes to objections, when you're looking to raise capital from people, if you can't answer every single one of these questions, then don't go out asking for money from strangers or even from your sphere of influence. #1, can I lose money on the investment? Absolutely, yes. But we mitigate the risk. What happens if the tenant trashes the place? This is if you're doing a lease option, a rent-to-own, if you're doing property management, or if you're doing something along the lines of that. Well, there's checks and balances in place, and we have people on staff who deal with this. So what happens if you go bankrupt? Well, your money is protected within the investment. It's not a personal guarantee. The guarantee is on the property. What happens if I go bankrupt, which would be the investor asking you this question? It's the same thing, which leads into our second question, is the money liquid? If that person goes bankrupt who lent you the money, their creditors or people looking to sort of finalize their estate is going to come after anybody who has money from that person. So you have to be understanding and aware of how to make the money liquid if need be. And we're going to cover all this in depth in the live training. What happens if you die? Well, again, my estate is not me. Well, sorry, I am my estate, but the properties are not. And the way we've structured the company is that if I die, the companies and the properties live on. What happens if you walk away? Well, I'm not going to walk away from a good investment property. If it's a bad investment property, there are escape clauses in every contract that we do with every single investor that we work with. So these are fairly typical objections that you're going to want to be familiar with. These are, gathered over the last 10 years of my investing, dealing with investors and private money and partnerships. These are the top 7 questions or so that I've been asked, and I just want to relay this information onto you. So finally, if you haven't done it yet, be sure to add the time for this training to your calendar. Again, you don't want to miss it because recordings will not be made available. So set a reminder to make sure you're there. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you.